What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from BackToMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're going to talk about Nuremberg. It's a 2025 film. It's being directed by James Vanderbilt, the guy that brought us Truth, which you may or may not have explored depending on how deep you went into Robert Redford's filmography after his passing. And this film stars Rami Malek, Russell Crowe, Michael Shannon, John Slattery, Richard E. Grant, Colin Hanks, Leo Woodall, and Schmidt. And it's being distributed by Sony Pictures Classics. It does have audio description, and it's definitely in that for your consideration phase. It's one of the films that people thought not a whole lot of, and then it debuted at the Toronto International Film Festival, and people were like, oh, well, maybe, because some people saw it, and it popped a little bit, and I can completely understand why. So let's talk about Nuremberg. It feels like a film that would have been best made around. I mean, for Russell Crowe, for the films that I see him in, when you think about like A Beautiful Mind and A Cinderella Man, it has a little bit of that old 2000s-ish vibe to it of how we did storytelling. It feels kind of out of place in 2025. That doesn't make it not a good movie. Be like if you hadn't seen Cinderella Man or Beautiful Mind and then decided to watch it in 2025, you would just notice that the style of filmmaking has changed slightly in terms of what we do with films. There's a very cinematic approach to this, knowing that it's following in the footsteps of a greater film like Judgment at Nuremberg. It has to present itself. It feels like a film that had a large budget, but I can't imagine on what. Like it's certainly well shot and well made and well put together. And it feels like a film that is epic in scope. It knows what its subject matter is, and it does everything that it can to relay that with the deftest of touches, because it's dancing a little bit on the edge with a doctor played by Rami Malek, who is brought in to oversee the mental health and acuity of the Nazi higher-ups that are going to be on trial at Nuremberg, one of them being Russell Crowe's character, who is, of those remaining alive, he is the highest ranking official. And then they sort of downstream from there. They really only focus on Crowe. Any other time he goes through, he only spends like brief seconds with anybody else. But most of it is his conversations with Crowe. And he tries to lean in on the narcissism, and he matching Crowe's character, in a battle of wits almost, getting Crowe to trust him. There's a fair amount of German in the movie that is spoken, so I'm curious, but only like Germans would know how good Crowe's accent is. So I was impressed by my ability to sit there and be wowed by the fact that Russell Crowe at all was tackling a German character. But as an Australian actor, I don't know how much German he knew going in, but he seems to pull it off rather well. The rest of the characters all play various Americans, or in the case of Richard E. Grant's character, British UK person involved in the Nuremberg trials. Michael Shannon's character is really sort of heading up the Nuremberg trials and trying to make sure that he gets these guys. And there's some really interesting moments too that I loved, some that really kind of show me that the script is elevated, that it knows what it has to do in order to convey um, certain points. And one of them comes directly from Michael Shannon when he's talking to Rami Malek, because he's trying to lean on Rami for sort of information. And, you know, he, Rami's just like, well, why don't you just shoot them? You know, if you need me, if you need this help, then why don't you, if you've already made up your mind, why don't you just shoot them? And then he's like, because this time we have to get it right, because after World War One, we absolutely just destroyed the Germans and left them in shambles, and within 2 decades they came back even stronger with this. So if I don't get this right, 15 years later, we may not be able to defeat them a third time. So it's sort of the chilling reality of why the Nuremberg trials were so important, why they had to be so accurate, why they had to be fact-based, and why they were trying to make sure that they showed the world we're not just being douches. We're just doing this because these are the actual reasons, these are the actual laws that were violated. He takes Rami into the space where there was the Hitler speeches, and gives him some history on that. And that moment felt like it had a lot of weight. Michael Shannon brings a lot of weight to the film, but at the end of the day, I think it's Crowe who steals it, and he's going to run in supporting against Michael Shannon. And it's hard not to be impressed with Crowe's performance, but I really liked Michael Shannon here as well. Rami Malek is fine. His role is basically our guide into this world. He's not super rangy. He doesn't go through quite nearly the ringer or the emotions, or he's not, you don't see this toll that's spent on him. But I think the showiest performances are from Crowe and Shannon, and I loved both of them. The rest of the cast is just there to enhance. Richard E. Grant does exactly the kind of role that you would expect Richard E. Grant to do. And same thing with John Slattery. He shows up and plays John Slattery. I think he's always going to be that guy from Mad Men, which is going to always affect his ability to be considered for awards, because they're just going to, well, you've been doing the same thing for forever now. And we already made Good Night and Good Luck, so I don't know what else you can do, man. So Colin Hanks, it's nice to see him included here. Leo Woodall has a nice moment. Schmidt. They do try to include like the female characters here a little bit, and I mean, they're nice. They feel like of the period, like their dialogue, the way that they have sort of a sing-songy beat to it, feels very 1940s. It feels like post World War II. Like it feels like instead of sounding current, which sometimes happens. I watched Apple's The Buccaneers, and one of my problems with that show is that those girls sound like today, not of the period. So Ren does a nice job of sounding of the period. But I really liked Nuremberg. I think this is one of the strongest films of the year. I think Sony Pictures Classics has a couple of films this year that I've seen that they have gifted me. This and Blue Moon and Eleanor the Great, that all have aspects of them that are all greatness. And I think as they laid them out, they kind of laid them out in order of greatness too. So they were like, well, actually, I guess they started with East of Wall and then built into Eleanor the Great and then built into Blue Moon and then built into Nuremberg, would be the argument that you could make. But yeah, I really think Nuremberg is the titan here. If they have another film this year, good luck. I mean, I'm really excited to know what that film is, because so far they have layered their films based on the strongest chances for the film. I think Nuremberg should be considered for Best Picture. I think it should be considered for Best Screenplay. I would assume adapted. I'm going to assume that it's adapted screenplay. But it's adapted from something. I mean, real life. I don't know. But and for Russell Crowe, I think Russell Crowe here is exceptional. I think this is the best that Russell Crowe has been in years. And not saying he's been bad. There are some actors who, when they get dealt the the D-list card, the movies that they get are actually sort of bring down their level of performance. I would argue that there are a couple films that Nicolas Cage has done in the last 5 years where he's actually not even good in the film. And no matter how much you like Nicolas Cage, it's really hard to love some of his performances in a couple of the films that he's done. But Russell Crowe ends up being the strongest performer in his films. Like, he's done 2 exorcism movies, The Pope's Exorcist and The Exorcism. And I think he's probably the strongest thing in both of those movies in terms of acting performances, like the memorable, like what did you take away from that film? He had, I've already forgotten the name of it, but he has one of those shitty, like, memory thrillers that we give to, like, the old guys now, where, like, they can't remember anything. He has one of those, and he was good in that, but the movie's not good. So, like, he keeps showing up and delivering the kind of performances that say, hey, I'm not done yet. Can I have something worth sinking my teeth into that the audiences will actually get to see and be able to appreciate and not be distracted by the fact that the movie itself is actually not good? He's finding a movie that supports him, that's actually a good movie. The question is, will anybody nominate Russell Crowe from Nuremberg? I don't know. I think the 5th place spot for sure is very much up for grabs. And I'm not 100% sold on Adam Sandler being a lock just because I don't trust the Oscars to nominate him. I mean, it feels like he should be there, so there might be 2 spots up for debate. But I mean, he could sneak in. It just depends on how many people like this. I think this is going to be more of a crowd pleaser. I think this is going to be more of a film where if audiences show up, they'll be talking about Nuremberg, which will then in turn cause more critics to talk about Nuremberg and more awards bodies and stuff like that. It has the potential to attract audiences. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's a little long, but there are a lot longer movies that you'll see this year. I already know the runtime of some films that I have yet to see, and they're longer than Nuremberg. So I would watch it again. I was sort of fascinated with the story. I was fascinated with the pacing. I thought it did really well for a 2 hour and 20-minute movie. I didn't think it lagged. The score is complimentary. It's not necessarily a score that I'll remember, but definitely when it started going into the credits, I realized how lovely the score was when there was nothing else to pay attention to. And I was like, well, it had been kind of lovely the whole time. I just don't think it's like a memorable score. Not all scores need to be. They just need to not distract. Something like Highest to Lowest, for example, I was actually negatively impacted by that score, and it actually affected the way that I could enjoy Highest to Lowest because I hated that score with all of everything in my soul and everything in my being. I hate the score to Highest to Lowest. But no, this is perfectly fine. And it's a good movie. It's a great movie. In 2025, I think we just don't make, I hate saying that, like, they don't make them like they used to, but they don't make films like this anymore. Like this feels like it's past its time. I think if this film had come out 15, 20 years ago, it would have a higher Metacritic score. Critics would be more used to seeing things like this. It's just, we have wildly changed. Studios like A24 have pushed what this film could be. So, we're a few years past Zone of Interest. And I think having that sort of correlation in terms of what this feels like a German drama from the 90s or 2000s. I was, oddly enough, one of the movies that reminded me of was Quiz Show, in terms of the way that the writing and the story was told and the beats and everything, which has nothing to do with the Nazi trials. But there's something to the way that the story is told and it unfolds, where I could have been convinced that Redford had directed this. So it's a very solid film. I don't know if it'll be in my top 10. I said that about Blue Moon too, where I have to sort of see how the rest of the year lays out. That just means it's not my number 1 pick. I find it really hard to believe that I'm going to see, at this point in the year, as we're in November, that I'm going to see 10 films that would take my number one film from number one to out of the top 10. I just don't think that's going to happen, because just because something is Oscar bait doesn't mean I'm going to love it. So yes, I have stuff I still need to see, but I don't think, so I think my number one would probably be safe. But as far as the rest of the films that populate my top 10, I kind of do a top 25 because I've seen over 350 movies. And I think it's fair that if you made the top 25 of what will eventually be over 400, then that's not bad. So, check out Nuremberg. I think it's worth your time. I think Russell Crowe should see some love this season somewhere from something. And I wouldn't mind it if Nuremberg as a film got some love too, or the screenplay, editing too. I mean, I feel like the film was really well edited and didn't waste any of its time or any of its cuts. And like I said, the pacing is really good. I don't know what else to be nominated for. I guess costumes, if somebody really loved the film. I can't imagine anything else that would necessarily. Production design would be a long shot for it. Cinematography would be a long shot. It's a lot of it's a little bit of almost like a courtroom drama, and those don't typically get nominated for cinematography. So ensemble, for films that have an ensemble award, everybody's strong here. There wasn't really like a bad performance. Even taking something like Leo Woodall's rather small performance and his little beat really emphasizes the fact that the ensemble is strong. So I like Nuremberg. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. So there you go. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.